Welcome to the Employee Onboarding course. Our first session is traditionally held in an open format. Today we'll discuss what adaptation and onboarding actually are, and also touch on how to onboard remote employees. That's our agenda for today. So why would anyone want to study onboarding? By fully understanding how onboarding works, you'll be able to build your own employee onboarding system for your company through this course. This will help you improve retention of new hires and get them working efficiently faster. The company will certainly thank you for it. This course has a website. Here's what it looks like. And in case we haven't met before, my name is Mike Pritula. These are companies I've worked for. I became closely acquainted with onboarding at STV television channel when I was hired as head of recruitment and onboarding and built the entire process from scratch. I developed policies, trained people, executives, recruiters, mentors on how to onboard, created the very first basic welcome package. We had an extremely modest budget, but people really loved what we gave them. Of course, later in gaming, there was an excellent onboarding program. At Preplay ID, again, I had to build the onboarding process from scratch. It's been diverse experience across different companies and industries. In my work, I rely on best practices. The onboarding process we'll discuss in this course is very well described by HRM. They have an article probably 100 pages long called A Science-Based Approach to Employee Onboarding. It covers components of effective onboarding and actions that impact successful onboarding. Essentially, the activities we cover in this course reflect the practices described in that comprehensive HRM article. I see we have quite a few participants, so I'd appreciate if you could share your job titles in the chat. I'm curious if anyone has the specific title of onboarding manager. We had such roles in gaming. I wonder if we have any here today as well. Please share your titles so we have an idea. Svetlana is first to respond, onboarding specialist. Great. Awesome, thanks. HR, good. What else do we have? Great, 3 people so far. Okay, anyone else willing to share? Anna HD Pharmaceuticals, apparently. Yes, thank you. Keep sharing while I continue. So in this course, we'll have homework assignments as usual, where you'll get to practice many aspects of onboarding. By completing all the homework, you can earn our certificate. We issue it on an online platform, and it's easy to add to LinkedIn, so you'll be proud of that achievement. Let's start with some statistics about onboarding. Look, about 25% of people change jobs every year. This is what we see in the statistics. They conduct a study on around 100,000 people. I don't recall exactly how many countries are involved, but it's many countries from all continents, probably 30 to 40 countries. They publish statistics on how many people changed jobs in the previous year, and it's around 25%. So it turns out a quarter of the working population goes through onboarding each year. This means statistically 1 in 4 people you know is undergoing onboarding this year. Up to 50% of those who start a new job quit within the first 4 months. It's true. Of course, some companies have better numbers. But for example, when I was developing onboarding at STB TV channel, we really had high turnover of new hires until we improved our onboarding and recruiting processes. Up to 50% of executives leave within the first 18 months. Companies give executives more time to show results, but even for them, 18 months is not much at all. Companies hire hoping people will stay longer. Now here's an interesting statistic. Of those employees who quit within the first 6 months of starting a job, 80% made that decision much earlier. In the first 2 weeks at the new place while they were still in the onboarding process. 1 in 4 new employees considers quitting within the first 3 months. It's true. I think if you recall your own experience starting at a new company, you either think about this or, I sometimes have such thoughts. I struggle with imposter syndrome. There is such a syndrome. It's when you criticize yourself harshly and constantly feel like you could do better. You know how it could be perfect. You compare yourself to that ideal and think, I'm just a bit short of perfect. And people often think, I'm probably not adapting well, I'll probably get fired. I probably won't make it through the probation period. New hires who go through a structured onboarding process are 58% more likely to stay with the company for over 3 years. Losing an employee can cost a company about 150% of their annual salary. These statistics explain in numbers why onboarding deserves your company's attention. 90 days is typically the probation period, and that's about how long standard onboarding lasts. This is the time an employee has to prove themselves. And on the one hand, see if he's a good fit for the company, and on the other hand, see if he's a good fit for the position. It's a two-way process. The employee evaluates the company and themselves in it, and the company evaluates. The sooner new employees feel welcomed and prepared for work. Here's a very important phrase. We in adaptation often focus on what people were comfortable with. So from the perspective of some HR, from the perspective of some managers, onboarding is such a preoccupation with employees when they're just starting out. But it's not just about caring. It's not just about showing interest, forming a positive impression. It's also about helping employees to become better prepared for work, to make them feel that I have everything here, everything is set up, I can work. I mean, I'm all set up and ready to go. I understand, I know. Well, accordingly, the faster they can successfully contribute to the fulfillment of the company's mission. There's a really cool rule on Facebook. Facebook, usually doesn't give us a lot of case studies, examples. I regularly monitor some interesting practices, but here's where I like their rule. And we did something similar on STB TV channels. Facebook has a 45-minute rule, which means that all new employees can start work within 45 minutes of arriving because all of their systems and devices have been set up before they arrive on their first day. Imagine Facebook is a huge company, hundreds of thousands of people. Of course, in smaller companies where there are 30, 50 people and things are quicker and easier, but in huge corporations, it can take a long time. And even when I was working at STTV, we were building an adaptation there. When I came, there were 700, we grew to 2,000, plus we had subsidiaries, there were another 500 or so. Let's say the average 1,000. And even there, we were already feeling how the employee exit and onboarding could be too scrambled. And we've been completely reworking the process, completely improving it, automating it, trying to get as much out as we can before day one. Yes, we had a questionnaire that people could fill out before they went to work. By the way, the guys have recently implemented this in their instrumentation. It is very convenient when you do not have to come to the personnel department with a passport, and they sit in front of you, fill out your last name, first name, middle name, by whom and when the passport was issued, and so on. If it's comfortable, a quick one at home to dial. What else? For example, decorating in the frame department. It often takes a lot of time too. You can optimize this better, like planning ahead. Who, when they come in, when they start decorating, preparing the workplace. Desk, chair, computer. There are many situations where an employee comes in. Well, I think that's probably the most unpleasant thing for an employee to come to work. No, second most unpleasant. You know what the worst part is? It's coming to work and finding out that you've been forgotten, you were not expected. It's just an embarrassment to the companies. That's the worst part. You made it. And you're all forgotten, you call the recruiter there. Oh, sorry, yeah, we'll figure something out. You're thinking, man, where the hell did I get to? The second is to arrive at the workplace and realize it's not there. No desk, no tu, no computer. And that's how it was for me, by the way, on STB. But it was natural for me because I was taken by this situation and corrected with adaptation. But when I got there, they said to me, look, you've been socializing. Your desk is not available yet, then please sit down. We have an employee on vacation right now. This is where you'll be working for a while. I also got a call the day before I came out saying, and you have a laptop. I say yes, and you can come with me because we haven't had time to organize a working computer. All right, chuckles. And so I came in with my laptop. I sat down at someone else's workstation, an old chair, a desk where someone else's stuff didn't start working. I knew what I was going for. I had to fix the situation, and we thankfully did. It was fixed to the point that the department had a supply of chairs, tables, they could come in quickly, twist it. But of course, the IT guys had a stockpile of computers. There you go. This course consists of 6 sessions. We're learning today about common approaches, common steps. Then in the second session, we're learning how to develop a program for your company. On the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, we just go through the key stages of adaptation and learn best practices, actions, examples of some templates, and so on. This is what this course looks like. Today, let's talk about the model of effective adaptation with HRM, which I've already had a little time to talk about. Why do you need to invest? We'll see what the monetary benefit is. In adaptation is often you have to talk executives into it, spend money, time. Sometimes you have to talk them into it. This will be much easier if you show how much money customization can save a company. Purpose and objective, adaptation, economic result, how Google adapts, gamification, checklist of successful adaptation, and remote employees will also come to mind. All right, let's get started. What we call adaptation. And that's the same as him being a god. In English, they more often say onboarding rather than adaptation. And we're talking about onboarding. It refers to processes in which new employees. Now, that's a word I really like. And I guess if it were up to me, I'd rename onboarding to integration. So once again, it's a process where new employees are integrated into the organization, or you could say even better, they're assimilated. It includes activities, also an important word. So onboarding is not just some text and pictures, it's about actions. Activities that take new employees through the initial orientation process, learning about the organization, its structure, culture, vision, mission, and values. That's what onboarding is all about. What does GL's research say? We trust Glow, a company with a long history of almost 100 years, a well-known international company, and they're very open about sharing data and various tools. Look closely, only 12% of employees are satisfied with their company's onboarding. Imagine, only 12%. These satisfied employees were nearly 3 times as likely to say they had the best job possible. It's true. When we were developing onboarding with my team at both Prey and WD and people went through the process, they were thrilled because there really aren't many places where onboarding is well designed, and they felt during onboarding that they had joined a really great place. Overall, only 29% of new hires felt they were trained and supported to be successful in their new position. And I'll be honest, it's terrible. If you come in and you're trying to stay afloat, like being thrown off a boat into the water and told, well, you'll manage, and you're in this water, you're in shock, you're choking, you're trying to figure out where to swim, grabbing at everything. But it's really bad when, on the other hand, there are companies where it's all well designed and there's no need to put people through such a shock. Instead, you can make them comfortable so they can start working effectively as fully prepared individuals. Here's a link to that very study by the company. You might be preparing arguments for your supervisors or managers. You can use this data and these links. Let's move on. An effective onboarding plan provides an ideal opportunity to increase employee engagement. For example, by fostering positive relationships between new employees and management, reinforcing commitment to the company, promoting employees' professional growth, and proving that management recognizes employees' talents. Now that's employee engagement, so what's the problem? According to the company's research globally, less than 30% of people are engaged at work. And onboarding, if well designed, has every chance of laying the right foundation. That is, people who become engaged during onboarding will maintain that enthusiasm for a long time. And conversely, if a person doesn't engage during onboarding, it will be very difficult for them to engage later. I mean, something has to happen that makes them think, well, basically, yeah, this is great, this is cool, so it's harder to fix later. It's best to make people engaged right from the start and maintain that engagement afterward. It's also related to the company's value proposition, what we call employer value proposition, or EVP for short. EVP or value proposition. They say employees, they say companies determine the value that employees get from working for a particular organization. It embodies the promises made upon hiring and is realized every day through the company culture. When hired, employees see for the first time how an organization's EVP may or may not be implemented. That is, when employees are hired, they are promised a lot of things. They are promised things in job postings, website texts by recruiters, executives, maybe in advertisements, maybe in some YouTube videos, even companies might have branding. And this is the moment of truth when a person joins the company to check. They promised me that you're the best employer brand, that you're a great company, you've written that you have a young, dynamic, growing team, and I'm looking to see yes. And whether that's true or not, It's like when you go to a highly advertised restaurant or hotel and you immediately check if what you see inside matches the promise or not. And right away, you're either given attention, greeted well, everything is cool and comfortable, or you immediately see that no one cares about you, you're ignored, the process isn't well organized, and so on. You could say that onboarding from an employer brand perspective is the moment of truth when a new employee confronts the reality of the situation. What should go into onboarding? This is also Gala's opinion. It should answer 5 key questions. What do we believe in? What are my strengths? What's my role? Who are my partners, meaning colleagues, business partners, and how do I see my future here? So you should build the onboarding process around answering these questions. By the way, the easiest way to assess your current onboarding in the company is to check whether it provides answers to these questions for new employees or not. Metrics. What metrics do we use in HR about the data-driven approach? We're about numbers, like all executives. So in onboarding, numbers are important to us too, what we can look at in onboarding. Time to productivity. That is, how quickly an employee can begin to show results like the employee who worked before them. That's what's called time to productivity. And onboarding affects this, especially in positions where the work is intellectual, not following a template. So if a new larger employee comes in, that time to productivity will be just a few days. That is, she'll be cleaning on the first day while she's learning everything, getting used to everything, and adjusting everything to her liking. Literally after a few cleanings, and there's her time to productivity. A sales manager takes longer while learning the product, customers, system, company processes, document templates, CRM. And if a manager comes in, the time to productivity can be 6 months or a year, while they get acquainted with the team, establish effective relationships with all team members, determine strategy, start having meetings, start interacting with other executives. The more complex the position, the longer the time to productivity can stretch, and the more important adaptation becomes. Adaptation for a loader will also be useful, but it may not significantly reduce the time to productivity. For a developer or a marketer, it can significantly reduce the time. Employee turnover and retention rate. Also very important, really. Take a look at your termination statistics. This is one of the first things I did at the STB TV channel. I took the turnover statistics for the year, divided by time frames. How long people worked? Very easy. There's the date of hire to termination. You calculate it in months using a formula and categorize it as up to 1 month, up to 3, up to 6 months, up to 12. And then you can do from 1 year to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 10. And you'll see that a lot of terminations happen in the first year. That is, when we started at STB TV channel, the turnover was, I think, about 30% annually. Half of that was people who worked for up to a year. Of that half, more than half worked less than 6 months, and many worked less than 3 months. That's what we started fixing afterwards. Because it's a shame to lose these people. I mean, you've just hired them. It seemed the problem was solved. People start working, managers start relying on them, and they leave. And it's like carrying water in a sieve. It's like you're trying to carry something, but it slips through your hands, through the sieve. And well, it's not very good. Next, there are other metrics, for example, retention rate. Also an interesting metric, new employee surveys. People may stay because there isn't always somewhere else to go, especially in different situations. But if people are already giving bad reviews about the company in their first few days, weeks, months, well, imagine how they will work. And overall employee satisfaction and engagement, also useful metrics for evaluating your adaptation process. Next, performance indicators, how effective people who have gone through adaptation are. And informal feedback, that is reviews, what people say in the smoking areas about the company, about adaptation, and so on. People start sharing their opinions very quickly in the smoking areas after they join the company. They relax. You can learn a lot of interesting things there. Now, that very model of effective adaptation from SRM, they have this article called, well, that's what it's called, and the model is called the Scientific Model of Effective Adaptation. It's a big article, really 100 pages. There's a bunch of research, a bunch of data analyzed. So what HRM authors, at least those who published the article, concluded: successful adaptation is the result of the right choice, employee effectiveness, role clarity, social integration, and cultural knowledge. These are the key factors for successful adaptation. And basically everything we do for people's adaptation, some of our presentations to employees, the rookie handbook, pre-employment support, that is these trainings, having a mentor, and so on and so forth. These are simply things that influence these factors so that they work and the employee is successfully adapted. That's the model. Now about the stages of adaptation. We identify the following stages. The first stage is the job offer. It starts the process. By itself, it's the end of the recruiting process, and it starts the adaptation process. From the moment of accepting the job offer, an employee starts thinking about their future job, and the job offer is the very first information they have about the upcoming work. The job offer already helps with adaptation. Then we identify the pre-boarding, what happens before starting work. The first working day, induction. Onboarding, it's up to 3 months. Then we don't stop working with the employee. We have continuous feedback. And look, there's another interesting thing called reboarding. People sometimes fall out of the company. They might go abroad for some international assignment within our company and then come back. They might go on maternity leave. They might get sick. The illness might be long-lasting, for example, a fracture. Well, in general, they might quit due to downsizing or switch to another form of employment and then return. This is all called reboarding. Essentially, we're readapting people. It's important not to forget about this. Why do we need to invest in onboarding and adaptation? Well, all studies show that with the right approach, adaptation gives such positive effects. It increases job satisfaction, improves commitment and loyalty, reduces turnover, increases productivity, improves career development, and reduces stress for people. What goals and objectives accordingly can we set for adaptation? When you launch any program in a company, develop an HR program, it's very important to set goals before implementing such programs. When you implement something, training system, grading, onboarding, recruiting in general, launching sourcing, launching a talent pool program, career planning, succession planning. In short, you can launch 1 million programs. It's important to set a goal before these programs. And here are some goals you can set for adaptation. That is, things you can plan so that the adaptation develops properly and you show management why it's needed. Improve with mentoring work, establish relationships, and so on and so forth. So here you choose what's relevant for your company. There are also different levels of adaptation. From basic, where you just need to meet some legal and other requirements. The next level is slightly more advanced explanations, when people are simply given explanations or shown certain things, like an orientation. Cultural level and building connections. The further you go, the deeper the adaptation. So in this course, we'll be looking at not superficial adaptation, but rather deep adaptation. The economic impact of adaptation. I mentioned earlier that it's very important when we do adaptation to explain the benefits to management, and preferably with data, because when you show data, management is more likely to approve. Accelerating the time to full productivity. We make this assumption. It's also based on research showing that when we build effective onboarding, employees become fully productive 1 month faster. Knowing the salary and number of hires, it's very easy to calculate. If we hire 10 people with salaries of thousands of dollars a year, we're already getting $10,000 in savings here. Increased productivity. Another study suggests that people who go through proper onboarding are 5 to 10% more productive due to higher engagement. For this, we take the total payroll, multiply by at least 5%, and there's the second economic impact. And reduction in turnover, we can make a prediction. For example, if our turnover is 25% and we say that with proper onboarding, we plan to reduce it to 20%. The 5% that won't quit is some number of people, let's say 25. Knowing that turnover costs 150% of annual salary. We can multiply all that and calculate how much money it will save. There you go. That's the effect it can have. Some interesting ideas. Google does onboarding very well. There's a movie about an intern at Google. It shows it pretty well in principle. I recommend you check it out. So discuss goals that are set, talk to the new employee about their job responsibilities, introduce the newcomer to their team so they can be helped to socially adjust. Help newcomers meet new people and build their social network at Google. Conduct monthly check-ins during the first 6 months to see how the new employee is adjusting. Establish an open door policy so the new employee knows they can always ask the manager for help if they have questions. Welcoming newcomers. These are scenes from the movie. Give a thumbs up if you've seen the movie. It's called The Internship. Interesting to see who has watched it. If you haven't, check it out. During the onboarding period, newcomers wear special caps that make them stand out. Thanks to this identifier, all employees are ready to help new colleagues. Yes, I'm noting how many people have watched it. They have a very cool welcome package. It's quite substantial. This is what it looks like. There's also personalized training. They call newcomers nooglers. Yes, they have Googlers and nooglers for newcomers, also a cool name. After being hired, nooglers go through a 2-week personal training and orientation program, which explains the organizational structure, core technologies, and programming methods, and senior engineers give lectures on Google's practices and culture. This way, veterans can better establish relationships with nooglers, while also developing their coaching and public speaking skills. Thorough familiarization with company culture. For Google, culture is not just empty words, they really invest in it. One of Google's fundamental organizational values is change. Technological and organizational evolution happens so quickly that a positive attitude toward adopting new systems and ways of doing things is critical. And so they dedicate efforts to instilling their culture in people. Next, they have code labs for new engineers. There, they also familiarize themselves with the specifics of the job. Plus, they do a lot of on-the-job training, giving some initial simple projects so people can practice. They have a mentorship program too, which is also really great. Nothing too special is required there. At first, the mentor is just a friendly person to meet with at the end of the first day. And then there's an average of 3 months of more formal mentoring relationships. Gamification of onboarding, also interesting approaches and practices. You know what's particularly challenging about onboarding? When you develop a great program with great elements, sooner or later you face the question of who will oversee it. I encountered this when I developed an onboarding program for the STB TV channel, and we were hiring 100 people a month. And I needed to ensure that everything we planned happened for each of those 100 people every month, and this had to be enforced and implemented somehow. At that time, the company didn't have the ability to purchase any software, so we had to make an agreement with recruiters. They were interested in participating in the onboarding process, so recruiters would keep a sort of adaptation log for each of their new hires. They would track everything using a spreadsheet we created, monitoring all the events we had scheduled for the newcomer to see if they were happening or not. Then we met once a week, discussing both vacancies and the onboarding process. We reviewed how things were going with the newcomers, what worked for them, and what was happening. But it's challenging, of course. Now, there are tools and things that try to make it more interesting and fun so it doesn't stress anyone out. For example, when I joined the gaming industry, the company started with paper-based adaptation logs, then moved to a platform where people had a clear onboarding scenario, tasks, social spaces where they could interact, and the ability to mark completed tasks. They even earned points that they could exchange for gifts, so it was a full-fledged gamification system. Before the portal, there was just a simple booklet. It had stages, tasks that people needed to complete. There were riddles to solve, answers to write, plus keeping a diary, and then newcomers would discuss all of this with the HR business partner. They were monitored to ensure people were going through the whole process. Some companies create chatbots. With chatbots, the situation is that no one has managed to create a single universal solution for everyone, except for something in recruiting. There have been many attempts, but it turns out that chatbot developers end up creating something unique for each company. Well, companies are creating them, so this could be well implemented through a bot, for example. Next, it can be done without any software or programs. It could just be designers, or you could even draw the adaptation steps somewhere on a board and tie some kind of reward to it. I think you've come across this New Year's thing called an advent calendar. The end of the year is coming soon. They'll be sold everywhere. It's a box-like thing. It has windows for each day of the month, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And when you open a window, there's some kind of gift inside. These can be sweet treats, toys, Christmas decorations. There are different advent calendars. You open one every day. You could do this for onboarding, outlining stages, and giving something for each stage, like a treat, as in this example. Here are some examples of these stages, and it looks like a person's journey, like a children's game, the way you shouldn't give up. And if you have a system for process automation, that will be the best solution. For example, like Horse. There you can prepare several onboarding templates. When adding a new employee, you can assign one of the templates. The system will automatically start processes according to the assigned template. This is how it usually works. You create a template and choose when an action should occur, before starting, on the first day, or a few days after starting. You can assign responsibility to the employee themselves, their manager, the recruiter, just some role in the IT department, or whoever sets up their desk. And you can link actions to each other, so when one action is completed, another should start. That action might be a couple of days later, and the system will initiate all of this, send notifications, reminders, monitor progress, and it's worth tracking overall progress, how well a person is adapting, plus showing everyone who is currently onboarding on the calendar, and showing when probation periods end. It highlights all of this so you don't miss anything. And now they've added a pre-boarding stage where you can add a person before their first day, and they have the opportunity to fill out a form, write about themselves, enter their details. HR then confirms it. So they simplify it all for everyone. So of course, modern software will be the best solution for managing onboarding. The same can be done in these systems for one-on-ones. It's also very convenient. You assign, then you outline the points, and you can have one-on-one templates. You can develop a template for the first week, first month, end of probation period, and the employee will see when you schedule a one-on-one. All these points will be there, and you won't forget to go through them. So it's all done very conveniently. Here's a small checklist for successful onboarding, a set of basic things I would recommend doing to make your company's onboarding process as close as possible to the model we've been talking about. I'd like to specifically talk about reboarding because I've seen these situations many times where, for example, women go on maternity leave, stay on leave, then come back. And in companies that grow quickly, for instance, when I worked at STI, they worked on one floor of one building wing, and there were, let's say, 15 offices. 3 years passed, they come back, and now there are 3 buildings, several floors each, several wings. Wow, you've got so many people here. Everything has changed here. I don't understand at all. I'm behind. I don't know what's going on here. We said, don't worry, it's okay, you'll adapt. But they strongly feel that, yes, things have changed a lot. People who go abroad, international companies. There's a concept called international assignments. Also, when they return to their home country after their assignment, they need adaptation too. People who have been sick for a long time. Now, of course, with remote work, many can work from home. Not all positions, but we've had a few cases where people returned after maternity, paternity leave and needed to be reacclimated to the situation. People who quit but then come back. Sometimes we think about them. You've worked here before, you know how things work, right? Well, come on, let's get to work. No, even if a person worked here just 6 months ago, they need proper adaptation because the company has changed. And there can be all sorts of temporary situations, contract suspensions, people can leave to serve. People can, lead some kind of social projects. Life now is such that people have many different formats and career pauses. And men sometimes go on paternity leave now. That is, I know cases where a woman gave birth and went back to work, while the man took paternity leave with the child, and often employers agree to this. There are legal provisions for such possibilities. So it's not just about women, it can apply to men too. Remote employees. Look at the situation with remote employees. Often when thinking about remote employees, they're thought of as aliens, and it's assumed that automatically everything in the company doesn't suit them. I would generally recommend treating remote employees like regular employees, and even try to ignore the fact that they're remote, because then you'll see that basically everything can be done online. That is, all the same processes can happen with remote employees. There are no complications. Even the welcome package can be sent perfectly fine. Overall, what's important? Maintain a human touch, that is, try to communicate personally. If possible, they should be invited to the office for their initial work period, if they're in the same city or country. Even if they're in another country, you can try to bring them in. For example, we had people in play that we hired to work in Berlin, and we invited them to Kyiv to work with us for a week or 2, and they got used to us, got to know us, and generally fit into our culture. Don't be afraid to use mail. People often ask what to give remote employees, what to get them, how to congratulate them. It's simple. Mail now goes all over the world. There are no problems at all. Send it by mail, it's all trackable. It arrives quite quickly, like Ukrainian Post. Now, Nova Poshta delivers too. In short, it's not a problem at all. And it's especially valuable when a remote employee receives a physical gift. Do everything online as much as possible. There are plenty of services that allow you to sign everything digitally. Don't forget about culture. Do the same things. Stay in touch. With remote employees, I would definitely emphasize maintaining more active communication. Because office employees will bump into someone one way or another and talk to someone, while remote workers will lack this, and conduct personal adaptation, help them meet everyone and get to know everyone better. Homework for those already in the course, and for those who aren't, I invite you to take this course. Calculate the economic result of implementing adaptation for your company. For this, you can use the formulas provided here, just change the numbers to your own, so that you understand specifically for your company how much money adaptation can potentially bring in. Some materials for good adaptation. And with that, we conclude the introductory topic on adaptation. Next, we'll talk about how to develop an adaptation program specifically for your company. That's all. If you have any questions, ask. If there are no questions, write down what was most valuable for you today, what you took away from this, and what you'll use. If there are no questions in the comments, I can thank those who were online today. So thank you. The metrics were valuable. Okay. Mike, thank you so much for the super helpful webinars. You're welcome. Dudia information for newcomers. Great compartmentalized information. Super. Yes, well, thank you. That's it. Have a great end to your day and see you next time. Bye-bye. Come take the course.